here. Welcome back to the Idiot Investor Guide channel. Today is the showdown you've all been waiting for, Hatch versus Sharesies. I'm going to go through three key aspects that I think have been pretty important leading up to my decision, which is the usability of the platforms, the options that you have to invest in through each platform, and the fees involved with both platforms. So I'll go through all of those and then give you my input on the decisions I've made and which I think is the best bet, and then make up your own mind, because remember, I'm an idiot, not a financial advisor, so take it with a grain of salt. And this is just what I've learned because I spent a lot of time looking into Hatch versus Sharesies when I first started, and it didn't seem to be a whole lot out there on the internet to help out. So hopefully this will help a lot of you guys that are in the same boat trying to make the same decision. So first up, usability. Usability is hugely important to me. It might not be to everyone, but to me, having a really nice user interface that makes investment easier, helps facilitate the investment, is a huge bonus. I think for people just getting into it, it really demystifies the whole thing and makes it nowhere near as scary as it seems by having some nice interface to work with. So, something like one of the banking systems, for example, to me, really clunky, hard to use, doesn't inspire me and puts me off. For other people, makes it seem serious. It is really what's up to you, but this is my personal opinion, which is usability is huge. So let's look at the usability of both platforms. So on the left-hand side here, we've got the Sharesies platform, and on the right-hand side, we've got the Hatch platform. As you can see off the bat, at my opinion, and hopefully you agree, they both look really nice, really sleek, sexy platforms. Investment, maybe not always the most sexy thing when you come to think of money, but yeah, it's very user-friendly on both sides, both on the computer and on the phone. So this is on the computer currently, but it looks basically the same on the phone. They don't have apps, they're both still websites, but you can save them as a tile on the home screen of your phone so that you can easily access them, and it feels like you're basically using an app. With Sharesies, to begin with, going through it, you get an overview of your investment. It really nicely summarizes whether it's up or down and tracks your investment over time. And it's really, as you can see, smooth, looks nice, easy to tell if you've made a gain or a loss. When you're going down and looking at what you're invested in, again, to me, feels real nice and easy. Some imagery. You can click in and out of any of these, and it will give you an overview of the funds. It will give you your overview of your investment over time, as well as the market's investment. So this is my own personal investment, for example. The pink line is saying how much I've gained. The grey line is saying how much I've invested. It gives you a nice summary. Again, overview will tell you things like what the fees are, fund charges, if there's dividend payouts, anything like that. A dividend, as well, for those of you that don't know, is basically profits that are paid out to investors. Some companies will do it, some companies won't, and it's generally on a quarterly basis or sometimes 6 monthly. So then if you need to go out and invest through Sharesies, it's very easy as well. You got funds and companies, again, really nice. You can search, you can either go in and look at everything as well. You can sort by whatever is important to you. Same with companies. So for me, this is real sleek, super simple and easy to use. To actually put money in your account is very easy as well. So, all of this stuff to me is really simple and clean. Hatch on the right-hand side now. Again, I really like it. There's a few differences between Hatch and Sharesies, so they're both, to me, the UI is fantastic. The user interface, that's what UI means, is fantastic. If we go down, Hatch has a similar thing of tracking your investment over time. It's looking at your total portfolio value, so it also tells you how much gain there is, but looking at the overall value. You can switch between percentage, which is kind of cool. And then it will tell you when the market next opens. I quite like that feature. So you're looking at when the market's next going to open. And when you go down, you'll see a summary of your different investments. I quite like this because, it can be on Sharesies' side a little bit more difficult to see a real quick snapshot of what you're invested in. This table, I find, makes it really easy to look at, here's the different investments. And then one thing that I prefer with Hatch is that they've got a watch list, which is really cool. So you can just set up a watch list of things that you might want to invest in, so that you can have all of your favorite ones just sitting there. I don't believe you can do that in Sharesies. If I'm wrong, leave a comment, let me know, educate me. So I find that part pretty cool. And then investing again is super simple. So you can go to browse shares and you can either search for shares or you can just look. Browsing is also super simple through Hatch. So you can browse for shares and this will take you to their whole portfolio of shares and ETFs that you can be investing in. You can either search directly or you can scroll down and look by things like industry. I find it quite easy to navigate. So if we looked at Vanguard, for example, and search that, it will show you all the different Vanguard ETFs. There are a lot more options. We'll go into that in a second, but still very simple to see and use and go into. The one thing about the user interface with Sharesies that I prefer is that if you're actually looking at your own investments, with Sharesies it's very easy. If I'm in New Zealand, for example, I just flick between my investment and the market overview, so I can see how it's performing in total. It'll show me the point in times where I invested as well, which I think is really cool. And then you can look at your investment in a snapshot, so you can flick back and forward really easy. In Hatch, it's not as simple. So if I look at Tesla, for example, it'll take me to my investment and then I have to actually go and look at the market info. So it takes me to a new page yet again. And that's where I can look at the actual market, and there's no sort of overlay, and it's not as quick and easy to go back and forth. So that's just a minor detail, but I do think that that's a bit cleaner in Sharesies. So that's a pretty quick overview on the user experience and the interface of Hatch and Sharesies. Ultimately, I think they're both pretty good. Subtle differences between the two, some that are better in Hatch, some better in Sharesies, but overall can't fault either of them. Really simple to use. Next, let's look at the options of what you can invest in both platforms. They both have quite a different focus when it comes to the different options. Hatch is primarily focused on the States, whereas Sharesies is primarily focused in New Zealand. That may change very shortly. Sharesies is planning to bring out some US stocks, and I'll do an updated video when that happens. But let's have a look at what they've currently got now. So on the left, we've got Sharesies again. You can see they've got heaps of choice. I actually quite like how Kiwi Sharesies is. When you're making an investment in Sharesies, they say, we're putting your investment in CHR or something like that. I love the use of CHR. Good on your Sharesies. You can see 165 plus companies and funds to choose from, so that's collectively. There's not a huge depth of funds in my humble view and strong opinion, but you know, it covers all the majors. You know, Australia, emerging market, US, New Zealand, so on. So most of your bases are covered. There's just not a whole lot of options for each one, so you kind of got one fund for each different type of investment. Like for the S&P 500 US, for example, there's one fund that does that, whereas in Hatch they've got multiple different options. So Hatch on the other side, huge depth of options. You've got 2,900 companies and 500 plus exchange traded funds. So that's the ETFs. Obviously a much deeper portfolio of what you can choose from. Sharesies, it has the New Zealand options though, trading on the NZX. So Hatch doesn't have so much of that. It's very much focused on the US stocks and the US stock exchange. To be honest, my whole goal is to not have more than 5 stocks, individual stocks, and not have more than 5 funds in each of these platforms at any one time. So for me, the depth of option, it's nice to have, but not necessary. What I do like about Hatch is the fact that it's got, in my opinion, more options for high growth stocks. So, you know, I've got, if you go and watch my Hatch portfolio investment journey on my channel, there's a playlist there. You can see I'm invested in Tesla, Apple, and Alphabet, all 3 of which I think are good options for high growth, and you just don't get that sort of depth in the New Zealand Stock Exchange, in my humble opinion. Again, I'm an idiot. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my observation and what I think. So here are some of the options you can see on both platforms when it comes to companies. So as I was saying, very New Zealand focused in Sharesies at the moment, but most of the major New Zealand stocks that you'd expect to see. And for me personally, way more than enough choice. I don't need all of this choice. I've got 5 that I'm in at the moment, probably 2 that I actively monitor, and the others are just why not investments. Then over on the Hatch side, you got your big players. So this is looking at the most traded, which is always interesting to look at. Tesla, big Tesla and Apple, obviously, very popular. Amazon, Microsoft. So all these big companies that you don't get through Sharesies, you can do through Hatch. So it's really up to you what your focus is. Is it US? Is it options? Is it high growth? Is it being lured in New Zealand? Really up to you. So that's a bit of a high level overview of the options that you have when investing in Hatch versus Sharesies. Again, it's going to be a decision on you, what your focus is around that. Next is move on to the fees. So this is probably one of the most important, in my opinion, things to look at when deciding where to invest, because I watched a bunch of videos that sort of show over time the compounding interest. So if you invest $100 today versus if you invest $100 in 5 years' time, that 5 years, there's a significant difference long term for the additional 5 years in terms of how much of a gain that you'll make. So the compounding interest is basically if you're making some money and say you make 10% gain over those 5 years, that 10% you've reinvested. Basically you've got that 10%, so then for the next 5 years you're making whatever gain on that 10% again. I hope that makes sense. So essentially, the sooner you get in, the better, but the fees are what take away from that compounding interest. So if you have higher fees, then your overall gain long term, you will see a massive difference. It may not look like much, the fees in the short term, but over the long term, it does become quite a huge factor. There's 2 major things to look at when investing when it comes to fees. The first one is the management fees, and the second one is transaction fees. There's a few other ones in Hatch that you need to be aware of, so I'll take you through those now. Looking at the 2 platforms, you can see Sharesies has a subscription fee, which Hatch does not. So Sharesies will charge you nothing if you have less than $50. 50 to 3,000 invested, it will charge you $1.50 a month, and 3,000 or more invested will charge you $3 a month. So you can actually do an annual payment of $30. So obviously if you have over $3,000 invested and it's not likely to drop below that more than 2 months of the year, then you're better off to just pay the $30 flat. Otherwise you'll be paying $36 a year. It doesn't seem like a lot, but an extra $6 is an extra $6. So save money where you can. Hatch doesn't have an subscription fee, but they do have a fee for paying for sorting out your US tax. To me, it's a bargain. Like you're only paying $1.50 US for the first year or the one-off startup, and then 50 cents US ongoing for them to sort out your US tax. I don't want to be spending my day doing paperwork, so I think that's a hugely valuable thing that Hatch does. So that's essentially the ongoing cost of Hatch. Sharesies, in terms of transaction fees, is really small. Like I have looked at a lot of places. I think you'll struggle to beat their transactional fee. There's some platforms, like I think Smart Shares, if you're auto investing, they don't charge you anything. But in saying that, Sharesies doesn't charge a transaction fee on ETFs anyway. So that's important to note. There's a fee for transactions on individual stocks in Sharesies, but not when it comes to funds. In Hatch, there is a $3 share up to 300 shares on anything. So whether that's a ETF, individual stock, it doesn't matter. When it comes to management fees, in ETFs, the management fee is actually more in Sharesies than it is in Hatch. I'm going to do a whole video on that soon, so look out for that. But essentially, because Sharesies invests through companies like Smart Shares when it comes to their ETFs, there's a management fee on top of the ETF fee. So in Hatch, you invest directly into the ETF, so the fees are a bit lower. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. I'm doing a whole video on that soon, so look out for that. And the other thing with Hatch to look out for is that there is an exchange fee. So every time you're exchanging money, because you're moving it from New Zealand into US dollars, assumedly, then you're having to transfer it at the current exchange rate, which might not be favorable, and B, Hatch will take a little bit of money for exchanging it. Really reasonable amount of money. In saying that, it says here roughly half of what you usually pay. That's pretty accurate, so it actually doesn't charge a hell of a lot of money. Still something to consider, but they are very reasonable about what they've taken. This $3 per transaction has come down significantly to about a month ago. So it used to be $3 up until one full share, and then above one full share it was $8 per transaction. So this is significantly reduced because now it's $3 up to 300 shares, which is a massive difference, and then it's only 1 cent a share above that. So the fees for transactions have gone down significantly. Kind of smart on Hatch's behalf for some of these bigger investments, because it could actually end up being more than $8 per transaction for a massive investment. So smart in the sense that they're going to encourage a lot more investment through their platform at a lower rate, but also they could stand to make a bit more money if people are doing massive investments. The key with Hatch is really to be looking at, okay, I've got Tesla that I want to invest in. Tesla stocks are at the moment about $800 for a single share. So, you know, $800 for a single share, you could be doing 300 shares at $800 and only paying $3 US. So it's about $5 New Zealand. So that's crazy. If you put $1,000 through Sharesies, then you're paying about equivalent to this $3 US fee, so about $5 New Zealand. So you have to be investing $1,000 at a time through Sharesies for the fee to be the same as the transaction fee in Hatch for up to 300 shares. There's going to be limits where you have to play the game a little bit there. So my suggestion is put as much as you can in at a single time through Hatch up to that 300 share limit to get the most bang for your buck. But Sharesies, I mean, it's really hard to beat their low percentage. It's 0.5% for any investment up until $3,000, and then above that it's another 1%, 0.1%. So you can see here in the fees section for Sharesies, when you're investing in a company, 0.5% for any orders up to 3,000, and then it's 0.1% ongoing after that. So somewhat similar to what Hatch is doing. Hatch just has a larger upfront transaction. So regardless of whether you buy 1 share or 300 shares, you'll be paying the same transaction fee. So it can work favorably for you if you can end up paying for a lot of shares in one go, up to 300. But also if you're buying 1 share, it would more than likely be a lot more cost effective through Sharesies. Enough rambling on about the fees. I think that's probably enough. You guys get a pretty good idea of the different levels of user experience, options, and fees through both Hatch and Sharesies. The one other thing probably to consider is just the speed of receiving money in your wallet. So Sharesies is really good. It's supposed to be within the same day. It's generally within a couple of hours. Like, it's supposed to transfer as quickly as it would between a bank. So yeah, I have received my Sharesies money in my wallet from transferring it within a couple of hours every time. Hatch, on the other hand, can take a little bit longer, so you just got to be aware of that. It's still pretty quick, but what I'd suggest with Hatch is if you have money sitting in your wallet in Hatch, it's actually being invested in the background still, and you can make a dividend off that. So you can actually be making a percentage off the money just sitting in your wallet. So that's why I'd suggest doing a lump sum and just leaving it there. That's kind of what I've got going at the moment, because if it's just sitting there, it's still actually making money for you. So it's better to have it there to be able to invest whenever you want to, because you're still actually making something off it while it sits there rather than it sitting in your bank account. So that's really my analysis of Sharesies versus the Hatch platforms. It's really going to be up to you what platform you choose. If you're looking at New Zealand trading, for example, Sharesies is going to be your better option. At the moment, if you're looking at US investing, Hatch is your best option. Fee structure it depends on the frequency you're investing, the amount you're investing, because management fees can be higher in Sharesies, for example. If you had a massive amount of money, that would become more significant than the transaction fee being higher in Hatch. So there's a lot you got to weigh up. I'll be doing a deep dive into the management versus transaction fees in a video coming up very shortly, so look out for that one. My personal opinion is that invest in both if you've got the money for it. So if you just have the option to invest in one and you're new to investing, I'd say Sharesies is easier. It has lower fees for smaller investments. So if you're investing small amounts, or if you want to invest regularly, Sharesies, in my opinion, would be the way to go. It is New Zealand focused, so you will miss out on the US stocks, but you can be investing in the ETFs like the US 500 fund, so you can still have exposure to other countries and other markets. If you're looking to try and get into high growth stocks, or wanting to invest in any of these massive big brands like Apple and Tesla and so on, Hatch is your way to go. Just be careful about the way you do invest to make the most bang for your buck when it comes to the transaction fees. This may change soon, and I'll do a new video when it does, because Sharesies is looking to bring out US stocks in the near future. So we'll do another review as and when that happens. So like and subscribe to make sure you get alerts when that comes out. I think you got to hit a notification bell as well. I am 1000% avoiding using the word smash that like button, because every idiot on YouTube says it and it annoys me so much. So just press it nicely, click it softly, and leave some comments if you have any more questions about the platforms versus each other. I've looked into it quite a bit. If you have any suggestions or any counter arguments to anything I've said, chuck it down there. Let's have a discussion. Let's open the discussion up. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. I'll be doing a video very shortly, as I said, on the ETFs of both Sharesies versus Hatch and the different fees, and where I'd suggest investing in ETFs. So look out for that video. If you want to see either my Sharesies or Hatch portfolio journeys, I've got a playlist for each on my channel, so go check that out. Till next time, guys, take it easy, and we'll see you on the next video.